Hello and welcome to RIFC Nation. I'm your host, Matt, and this is episode 2 of my one man podcast talking all things Rhode Island FC. A big thank you to everyone who checked out episode 1, the plays across the various podcast platforms, as well as on YouTube. Definitely exceeded my initial thoughts. So I just want to thank everyone for taking, 12 minutes or so or whatever it was to watch my first episode. I really appreciate that. And thank you again for making that happen. If you're new to this, RIFC Nation is my weekly sharing of my thoughts on all things RIFC, from the match day experience to a bit of a performance analysis. So welcome aboard. Please hit that like and subscribe button wherever you are listening or watching. This will be a fun one as I actually get to talk about a Rhode Island FC match that meant something. On Saturday, March 16th, Rhode Island FC kicked off its inaugural USL Championship campaign with a home opener and inaugural match versus New Mexico United. The lots opened at 1 p.m. and I got there with my 6-year-old son around 1:30 p.m. I reluctantly sprung for one of these season parking passes, and while I think overall saving the $5 per game and being guaranteed a spot in the lots inside of Bryant versus having to truck it and maybe take a bus is overall a net positive, I do see the cost as a major negative. I wish I had known when I bought my 2 season tickets that up front that I would have had to essentially purchase an extra season ticket just to park. I considered buying 2 more for my younger son and wife, and I'm kinda glad I held out on 2 right now, and I'm interested to see how all that will settle when the club does finally get to Tidewater, Landing. I think I would've been far less upset if it was $10 per game, but I'll end that rant right there and, save it for another time, as I know a couple people across social media are having those same conversations. I expected it to be a bit of a process, just getting in and parking with having a pass versus not having a pass, people potentially going to the wrong lots. But I was very impressed with how easy it was to get in, get my pass scanned, and pull into the designated lot. So a big credit to the staff who made this so streamlined. We parked in a row, about a row over from the Defiance tent, and set up our tailgate. Ran into quite a few people I knew from the Defiance and just from, Rhode Island. It's small. And it was a fun atmosphere to begin with. One thing I will knock, however, is some people kicking around a soccer ball who probably hadn't done it in multiple years. There was a larger group next to us, and my car, my chair, my son's chair, and our tailgate table was repeatedly pelted with a ball. Just be respectful to others if you want to kick a ball around. I'm not against it. I'm not trying to denounce it, but know what you can and can't do. And if for some reason you find yourself repeatedly hitting someone's tailgate setup or being all up in their space, move. It's that simple. It's that easy. It's not the end of the world. Just be courteous of others. We're all there to have fun, and we don't need someone, pelting us with a soccer ball the whole time. As far as tailgate setups go, there were some awesome displays, tents, grills, music, food spreads, you name it. RIFC fans were out in full force and were partying it up in the parking lots. I love to see it. The atmosphere was again raised when the Providence Drum Troupe entered the fold. This was really cool to watch. From several members who had elaborate costumes on, big hats, one guy drumming on a hoverboard as they marched through the rows of the lot and made their way to the Defiance tent. They joined up with members of Lavanda for a little jam session, and it was just cool. It got the environment popping off early and really brought some excitement to the lots. My son and I continued to tailgate for a bit longer, including our game of checkers. So if you're ever walking through the lots and you see a father and son playing checkers on a tailgating table, that's us. Come say hi, stop in for a game. We made our way to the gates around 3:20, and the line was quite long and moved quite slow. Despite having 4 to 5 people scanning tickets, it just wasn't moving. I think the people scanning tickets were actually a bit too close to the security check-in, so things got backed up quite a bit. Once you got through security, there wasn't really anywhere to go, and it kind of forced you into the first person scanning tickets. I think if they moved further forward, kind of towards the entrance, it would have been a little better and a little more streamlined. But it's only the first match, and I do expect this to get a little more streamlined and better as we go. Upon entering, I immediately noticed they added porta potties on the side of the stadium across from the main stand. maybe somebody listened to my last episode or the thing I put into the Defiance Discord for questions for the club, but it was a welcome sight. I've never been so happy to see a porta potty and know that I wouldn't have to walk all the way across the stadium in the middle of a match if my son or I had to go to the bathroom. So if you watched my last video or listened to the last podcast, you know that was a big suggestion of mine, and I was so glad to see it was implemented. So we walked around the stadium for a bit. We went and picked up the kids club pack for my son. We were gonna hop into the merch line to buy the away kit, but I figured we'd miss kickoff with how long it was. If you are watching this on YouTube, you will see I am sporting the kit today, so I did get it. So I'll give a bit more on that later. But it was just so backed up, and figured we did not have the time and didn't want to miss all of the pregame festivities. The It seemed they only also had the away top at the merchandise stand near the main stand. So things were extremely backed up over there because there was a kids club pickup, there was season ticket scarf pass out. So it was just a lot going on slightly outside of the little food truck area. I ended up grabbing a beer before we sat from the beer garden under the video board, and then we made our way to our seats. The section, rows, and seats were all clearly labeled, so it was extremely easy to find our spots. A few minutes later, after sitting down, some RIFC staff and the in-stadium host came over to inform us that we won the lucky row of the match. We had made the video board as we were presented with gift certificates to Stackhouse Southern Cuisine. What a great start! I'll have to report back on the food once I make the trip. I know it's down near URI. I'm up in North Providence. Total Rhode Island comment there. But I will get down there and definitely give the food some try and let you guys know what I thought of it. One thing I will knock, however, about the seating, and it's probably my fault just for not having familiarity with the stadium when ordering the tickets, is that I have seats 1 and 2. And when I hear seats 1 and 2, and I think the reason I purchased it, I would normally expect those to be on the aisle. At Bryant, it's quite the opposite in section 21 in those small half sections across from the main stand. It's actually where seat 1 is pressed against the fence dividing the two sections. I can't see the goal directly to my right unless I stand up or if I peer through that fence divider. It is quite an obstructed view. But there is the potential to move, and I might actually look into that, get closer to the Defiant supporters section, but we'll see how that goes. And if not, it's only one season in the stadium. Hopefully, things will be a little bit better for me in my seat selection, but I'll do that research much better ahead of time. Once we settled in and the festivities began, the national anthem was great with the fireworks and the Black Hawk flyover. It was a great atmosphere from the get, and that was also due to the Defiance bringing the noise from the opening kickoff. I will say, after the flyover, some people around me had a conversation basically saying, "That'll be the best thing we see all day." I don't get it. Why do you want to attend if you're not going to support the team and just talk shit about it? Like, what good does that do you? Oh well, there's a few in every crowd, I guess. RAFC's first ever starting 11 was Koke Vegas, Steven Turnbull, Grant Stoneman, Frank Nodarse, Karifa Yao, Clay Holstead, Jojea Quizera, Joe Brito, Mark Ibarra, Albert Chico Dequa, and Noah Fuzon, with Lee, Doyle, Sadie, Alves, McGlynn, Vang, and Messer on the bench. They lined up in a 3-5-2 in possession, which actually fell back to a 5-4-1 when defending. It was good to see the team and the formation adapt to different situations. Despite no goals in the first 45 minutes, I thought the first half was extremely entertaining. I actually thought that RAFC were the better side and dominated much of the play in this one. Despite New Mexico having a slightly higher share of the possession with 52%, RAFC outshot NMU 13-2 with 3 shots on target and 1 big chance created. Turnbull was the focal point down the right again. As I mentioned in episode 1, he put in some balls into some dangerous places. One thing I would have liked to have seen from him was to take on that left back a bit more off the dribble. They were expecting him to drive in crosses and played off him a little bit, but they gave him a lot of room, which he just simply did not take. He took the early cross where I think he could have drove the ball a little bit further down, or further and deeper down the right flank, and got it into an even better position. I also thought the midfield duo of Clay Holstead and Marky Barra were great. They were the driving force in the middle. Clay rattled the woodwork in what was a very good chance, and Mark was kind of like Roy Kent from Ted Lasso to me. He was here, there, and everywhere, not afraid to stick his toe into a challenge. Did get booked in that first half, but was definitely a physical enforcer type in the midfield. RIFC looked extremely well organized and dangerous on set pieces. There were a few free kicks placed into great areas that were just missed, and multiple corners where very easily could have scored. I believe that set pieces will be a strong point for us this season and hopefully will lead to multiple goals. I think our size and our kick takers is just a great combination. We can get the balls into dangerous spots and hopefully we can capitalize on it. As I mentioned earlier, Ibarra and Fuzon both pick up yellows in the first half, and it unfortunately displayed the quality of the match officials the USL Championship has at their disposal. I found the center official extremely confrontational. He would talk and complain with anyone who would listen and talk back, and he was equally as inconsistent. The yellows given to Ibarra and Fuzon were not like other fouls committed by NMU, but RAFC were penalized much harsher and more often, with 12 to 7 fouls in favor of RIFC. Again, although this was nil-nil at the half, I thought it was very entertaining, end to end, and there were plenty of opportunities. My son and I did a lap around the stadium at halftime, tried again for the merch tent to pick up the away kit, but again, the line had to be 50 plus people deep, so decided to wait until the end of the game and returned back to our seats, hopeful to see RIFC capitalize on one of the many chances they had continually generated throughout the first half. Coming out of the break, I thought New Mexico United hit another gear. They were on the ball a bit more, and much of the play was in their attacking third, but things did level out until the 68th minute when Talon Maples fired one home from point blank after a free kick, making it 1-0 New Mexico. I thought it was a soft foul to begin with, and again highlighted how weak match official Jeremy Shear was. I wouldn't normally throw his name out there in the podcast, but there was just something about this guy. He was heavily heckled from near my area for the foul decision to which the free kick took place from. And after the goal, he actually ran over to the sideline and threw an object towards the stands. Seemed to either be a whistle or a battery. I don't know. But regardless of what it was, it hit off a board or a support and actually almost hit a family of four. He even got more jeers from this one. I watched a lady berate a stadium supervisor over the incident. I don't think this woman knew exactly what was going on, but was repeatedly yelling at the supervisor that that guy in the red shirt threw this and almost hit my kids. That's inappropriate. That's uncalled for. That guy in the red shirt, she kept yelling. Um, I just thought it was a really bad look. I tweeted at the league. I sent an email, and I hope they review this. I think it was just a bad look. But we move on. Despite the goal, the Defiant supporters section got even louder and tried lifting the spirits of the players and fans alike. And they are doing one heck of a job creating an atmosphere inside of Verne Stadium at Bryant University. From singing, chanting, drumming, popping smoke, the stadium has a vibe, and it is largely due to the Defiance. Well done to everyone involved. Keep it up. I know it helps the players and it helps the fans around the stadium feel more involved as well. And the mood did pick up from the Defiance. There was no quitting these players throughout, and despite being down 1-0 late in this one, RIFC led many statistical battles throughout the second half, including the possession battle with 54%, and they also were level on shots on goal with New Mexico at 7 apiece. The big moment finally came, although not until stoppage time, as Noah Fuzon, who I thought was great. I thought he was really good on this one. He drove the ball forward all day, completed 80% of his dribbles, threaded in some tight passes, connecting on 20 of 28 passes, included 3 into the final third, 2 shots to his name. He put a beautiful ball across the goal, which hit off sliding New Mexico United defender Chris Gloucester, who was defending a sliding RIFC substitute, Mark Doyle. Doyle was originally credited with the goal after it ricocheted in off the New Mexico defender, but was later corrected to the first goal in Rhode Island FC history, going down as an own goal for the New Mexico defender. What a fight to the finish, and what a way to end this one was. The stadium went absolutely bananas, and it was great to see the team and the fans celebrate this hard earned point in the inaugural match. Final stats for this one include 51% possession lead for RIFC. RIFC outshot New Mexico 29 with a 9-6 lead for Rhode Island with shots on target, including 2 off the woodwork from Clay Holstead, who was pinging them all day long. 3 corners for each team, 5 blocked shots by RIFC defenders, and 27 tackles won for the home side. A great performance, a fun watch, A lot to be excited about with this team going forward. I know everyone post match likes to pick their man of the match. I actually like to pick my top three performers. I'm not even a big hockey fan, but I think hockey kind of does it right with the 3 stars. But mine will always be RIFC performers, not opposing players, because I don't care to talk about them. My first pick is defender Karifa Yao. I mentioned in episode 1, there were a lot of people skeptical of him in the Defiance Discord after the PC friendly, but man, oh man, can the big fella put in a crunching challenge. Receiving a 7.8 match rating on FOTMob, Yao completed 80% of his passes, and that's what people were upset about, the ball at his feet. And 80% of his passes was on 66 total touches. He won 7 of his 8 tackles, had 2 clearances, one was a headed clearance, 1 interception, 11 defensive actions completed, and 11 duels won. Just a mammoth performance from the defender. Next up for me was midfielder Clay Holstead. The RIFC midfielder notched an 8.5 match rating on FOTMob with 4 shots and 78% pass completion on 67 touches. He won 3 tackles, had a headed clearance, 2 interceptions, 7 defensive actions, and 12 recoveries while winning 5 duels. He was literally everywhere. He's a lot of fun to watch. I really enjoy watching him play throughout this midfield. Finally, my third standout performer was Steven Turnbull, who, despite having a relatively low 6.8 rating on FOTMob, had 72 touches, 2 tackles, 7 defensive actions, 5 recoveries, and won 10 duels. He was also not afraid to get into the face of several New Mexico United players, even showing one how short he was and giving another the Kembe Mutombo finger wave. I love the energy he brings, and my son has even started calling him his favorite player, due to the fact that whenever RIFC is attacking, he's literally right on the touchline, right in front of us for that whole half. If your top 3 is different than mine, I'd love to hear your shouts for the spots and why. Comment on this YouTube video if you're watching it, or drop me a line on any of my socials. I look forward to reading them. You can find a link to all of those accounts in this episode description. I'll put a feeler out there across my social media accounts after this one to get your thoughts on the match, and much of the responses came from Reddit. Here are some of the responses I received asking for people's thoughts on the match. Awesome XO on Reddit replied, "Thought it was a great match. A couple posts in the first half kept this from being an insane first match, but if you are going to draw, a stoppage time equalizer is the way to do it. Felt like RIFC was the better team in the first half, but the second half was more equal, or maybe even tipped to New Mexico. Props to the Defiance. I was on the other end of the stadium, and you could feel their energy throughout. RIFC, I think, did as good a job as they could have borrowing a stadium, making it a fun atmosphere before and during the match, and parking wasn't nearly the debacle I was prepared for. Got there about an hour before kickoff and took maybe 10 to 15 minutes to get in and parked." So much of my same sentiments is shared with Awesome XO on that. So very good to read, and glad you enjoyed it. BJax19 replied with, "The whole experience exceeded my expectations. Defiance brought a ton of energy throughout the match, and the squad looked very solid for the first game. The whole crowd went absolutely bananas when we scored, which was fun to be a part of." And then R.A. Healy replied with, "Thought we played well. Ton of great stuff out there that we can build on. My takeaways include pros. What a debut for the club. Shout out to everyone behind the scenes for what felt like a truly flawless debut. I'm sure there's been a ton of time and effort invested here, and it showed. I thought our approach was very modern, played an asymmetrical system, pressed well, kept our center backs and goalie high, played out from the back. All things I love in a team. Arsenal fan." I got to knock that. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my Rhode Island Spurs scarves in the background. So the one knock I will give to you on this one, BJax. Um, but that's neither here nor there. We can unite around RIFC. Holstad was my standout performer. Thought he was left on his own a ton, see con section, but brought a lot of calm and progression to our game. Thought Turnbull's role is very interesting and important. Having one fullback free and another tucked in at center back is fun and can create a ton of advantages. Not sure we used them as well as we could. See con section. Subs really made an impact. Sadie was electric. Doyle helped get us into the draw, and McGlynn was everywhere when he came on. What a massive human being, by the way. Lastly, wanted to shout out Fuson for his versatility, played 3 different positions, and made many more roles this game. Will be incredibly useful. Cons, midfield felt non existent. Holsad seemed to own most of the game, and it felt like we weren't playing to the strengths of the system fluidity, which I'm sure will come with time. Need more people in pods combining together to create overloads. The left pod was especially off. Our left fullbacks tucked in well to create a stability, but needed to move up to a level to help combine with Quizera, who did a great job holding the width most of the game, but we didn't utilize the space he created with switches. Ibarra and Brito also felt very disconnected from this pod and could have come over to help combine here. Our strike partnership will also need to gel more. Need to work on going high one coming into the midfield in order to create those overloads depending on what side of the pitch the ball is on. Overall, final third chemistry needs to build. Totally expected from a new team and can't wait to see them find some flow here. I think that'll also happen when JJ comes back into the fold. Main takeaway, so much more to come from this team. Excited with a lot of what I saw today and can't praise the atmosphere enough. Up the tide. Thank you to everyone who took the time to write in. I appreciate you helping add to this podcast, and I love hearing your thoughts. If you missed out this time but want to get your thoughts on the next pod, be sure to follow all of the accounts on my socials by clicking the link in this episode description and give each one of them a follow. Up next for the Tide on Sunday, March 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern is a trip to Monterey Bay FC, who have one win and one draw in the young season, with a 1-1 draw away to El Paso Locomotive and a 1-0 home win over last season's champions, an easily rattled fan base by Matt from Raising Anchor, Phoenix Rising. This will be a tough test for RIFC in their first road game, but I'm excited to watch on from afar. You should be able to catch this one on Nesson or via ESPN Plus if you're outside of the area or you have a handy VPN. Before I sign off on this one, it's worth noting I made an RIFC 316 t-shirt on a print website with yesterday's score on the back. Apparently that's against club policy and copyright. I don't understand this one. I don't get this one. I used a different font, didn't use the club's logo, but they're claiming RIFC is part of their quote watermark. I'm confused by this. Again, there was watermark, I think image protection. Um, there was no malintent in this creation. Figured I'd be the only one who kind of bought it anyway. Maybe a few others who like the Stone Cold Steve Austin reference. Oh well, just wanted to mention it in case you read about it, because if the club is claiming RIFC can not be used in non-official club things, I might need to change the name of this podcast as well. So I'm going to start kind of turning the wheels and shifting gears on that one. So if you have any different names you think would work, please drop me a line. You can send me an email. You can click that link in this description. Get in touch with me on any of the socials. I'm on Discord in the Defiant server as well. Just get in touch with me. Want to know what you think would work, what you think would be cool. There was no copyright infringement intended in that or any of the posts I make on social media. Just trying to connect fans, get hyped about the club, talk about the club with others, and help build the supporter community. Just wanted to put that out there. But that will wrap it up for this one. I hope you enjoyed. If you listen to the podcast version of this, please consider leaving a positive rating and review where applicable. This just helps more fans find the show. If you watch the YouTube version of this, please take a second, hit that thumbs up button, give this video a like, and click that subscribe button. And remember, these recordings will be available on podcast platforms as well as YouTube every time I do them. So you can find it pretty much anywhere. And if you decide you'd rather watch or listen, you have the outlet to do so. I do plan on doing some live shows as a part of the YouTube recordings where you'll be able to chat in, ask your questions, and I'll answer them live on air. So if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please take a second to do so, and you'll get a notification when I do go live. You can find all of my accounts from Facebook to Twitter and Instagram by clicking the link in this episode description. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Matt. I'll be back next week to talk more Tide. See ya.